This is the Infinite Podcast with me, Ulf Tendeflittig, solo this time, going boldly into the unknown, finding the deeper truths about our existence and sharing it with you, my beloved listener. In this episode, I talk about stress. And I use my experience in trying to be a hip-hop dancer as a grown-up to delve into the stressful realities of Ulf's life. Enjoy. Stress. That's a stressful word, isn't it? Now, stress can either be a noun or a verb. As a noun, it could either be pressure or tension exerted on a material object, like stress on the bridge, or pressure, tension, or strain. And it can also be a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or demanding circumstances. It is also a verb, and it can give particular emphasis on the important to a point statement or an idea made in speech or writing, or if you're subject to pressure or tension. Now, in a sense, the human body is a material object, and it could be put under a lot of pressure and or tension, putting our mental and emotional state in this state of stress. But what is stress? Like, typically, and I'd say earlier in my life, stress would be something I would try to avoid, right? Because when I was stressed, I was uncomfortable, and when I was uncomfortable, I didn't feel good, and I wanted to feel good all the time. So if I could avoid the stress, that would be great. So I'd label situations or circumstances that I felt would be stressful as things that I wanted to avoid, so that I could not feel stressed. And if I did feel really stressed, I'd make a sure note of it to avoid that in the future. Now, lately I've started looking at stress in a different way, actually more of like a friend, because I guess stress is a reminder of something. It's an invitation, even, I think is a good word. Because when you're doing something and you're becoming stressed, and you're sort of pushing yourself into something that you're not comfortable with, well, it does sort of indicate that there's some pressure on parts of you that is straining you over your limits. And it might be like that might actually be something that you need to investigate further, not avoiding it, but actually going into it. Like a couple years ago, I started dancing. Now, I've never danced my entire life because I was a tall kid, and I was convinced that I was not very well, my limbs, I was very, like, my movements weren't were like jagged and not very smooth, and I had long legs and long arms, and well, motorically speaking, I wasn't very elegant. So I was taller than everyone else, so I was convinced that everyone would look at me if I danced and would see how I was not in any way, shape or form dancing. So if there was a situation as a child or as a teenager where dancing was involved, I would become quite stressed and uncomfortable, and I would try to avoid situations where dancing would be something that would be happening, unless maybe I was really drunk. Because interestingly enough, then I forgot that I couldn't dance. But so, as an adult, obviously you rarely have to do things that you don't want to do because you're an adult. You can decide for yourself, so you can easily avoid these things that you find stressful. So I, didn't have to dance unless I was drunk or could do it in a silly way as to not be serious about it. But then when my wife was pregnant with our third child, she had been going to dance lessons at this local studio, as had my two kids. And at that point in her pregnancy, she couldn't dance anymore. And my son and my daughter said to me that they thought it was my turn to dance because, I'd been not dancing all the time and everyone else was dancing, so why shouldn't I dance? And I was kind of taken aback at that question because, why shouldn't I? So I felt sort of like the calling to adventure, and obviously I did get that tingling feeling in the back of my mind of this is going to be stressful, this is not going to be fun. But at the same time, I had been with my kids, watched them dance and seen how much they enjoyed just being in their bodies dancing. So I was tempted to give it another shot. And so I looked at like the different lessons you could take at the local studio, and at first I was like, well, they have yoga over there, so I can do yoga. It seems I've never done yoga before, so it sounds appropriate. And at that point in time, I was more open to like alternative ways of approaching both exercise, dance, and well-being. So I was like, maybe I'll do yoga. But at the same time, it was this other class that was, dare say, calling to me, which was a hip hop class. And I've been like when I was 10, I saw some break dancers at this venue in Trondheim where I grew up, and I was in awe of these kids who were doing they were dancing to this new type of music that I had never heard before, and their moves and it was so fresh and so intriguing. But I guess the big hip hop fan faded quite quickly in Trondheim, and also, as you know from beforehand in this episode, I had concluded that I could not dance, so it was never an option for me to pursue a career in breakdancing anyways, even though I secretly thought it looked really, really, really cool to be able to dance so freely to the rhythms of especially hip-hop music, which also spoke to me very like the rhythm and just the beat of it all. So back to a couple of years ago when I was standing there looking at these different options, and there was a hip-hop class for grown-ups. I was like, well, I'm a grown-up, and I guess this is it. And my son was also dancing hip-hop at the time, so okay, let's do it. Let's enroll into the hip-hop class, and when I went to the first dance class, I was so scared, and when I came in, I was first of all, I was the only male person in the group except for our teacher Thomas, who I must say is a great dance teacher. He's amazing, and I felt really insecure, and I was quite stressed at the sheer fact that it began to dawn on me that but if you can't dance, what are you doing here? Are you gonna pretend like you know how to dance? But Thomas was very well. He was the perfect mentor for me at the time. Still is, in terms of just not being so hard on myself and just trying my best, and like I confronted my fear, and I stayed in this stressful situation, and after a couple of sessions I started to feel that I could actually do some of these things, that I could actually improve, that this was a skill I could actually acquire. But then something really, really interesting happened, because at that point I was feeling a bit more confident dancing in this group of other people, but all of a sudden Thomas came over to me to give me some pointers to help me improve my skill as a hip-hop dancer. And I became 10 years, like in the blink of an eye, I was a kid again, and I was scared shitless because he'd seen me dance, and obviously I couldn't. So he had all these points he made out as to how I could do it better, and I became so stressed, and my entire body I just froze, and I was like, how can I get out of this situation? Why did I come here? Why did I do this to myself? This is horrible. I feel useless. I feel like shit. And I remember very clearly, like after that dancing lesson, I went home and I was like, I'm never going back there again, because that was horrible. I would never want to subject myself to something as awful as that ever again. But at the same time, there was this voice inside of me saying that I should go back there again. And so I decided to confront this fear of this numbing sensation where the stress just got the better of me. So the next time around, I spoke to Thomas and I told him about my experience. I shared my vulnerability, because it was important for me to be honest and to actually investigate what was this thing and what was happening. And he was very understanding, and I think like the most important part was not what he had. He didn't have to do anything. There was nothing he needed to do. It was just me needing to actually say out loud what I was afraid of, and then like gradually over the course of maybe the next 10 lessons or so, I became more comfortable with the fact that every once in a while Thomas would actually give me some pointers as to how to do some type of footwork or with my arms or posture or whatever, and I managed quite well, and I could do it without have the stress take over completely and stop me from being able to do something that I realized that I truly, really enjoy. I love dancing. And if I'd let's say my childhood trauma, self-inflicted for sure, insisting that this was something I could not do. And then when it popped up again, actually confronting it, going into the eye of the storm and actually staying in the situation, I could actually master it and improve myself. Now, I also have to confess, now this is I think 2 or 3 years ago, and I'm still dancing in the same dance class. It's so wonderful, and it's truly a highlight of my week, being together with other people, just dancing and challenging myself to actually dare to let go of this fear of looking like an idiot, and actually daring to look awesome, which is harder than you think because it's all in your head. But to this day, if someone looks at me or pays attention to me when I'm dancing, it's still there. It's always gonna be there. And confronting your fears and seeing what makes stress, this trigger of yours, it's not about getting rid of it. It's about shining a light on it and seeing that it's there, and that it is your friend, and it was originally there to protect me, but now I need to include it, and I need to let it be a part of me. And then we can actually dance together, me and my stressed out, fearful friend, 10-year-old Ulf. He's a cool kid. I like that guy. And now I have children of my own. And there was this, my son is 9 years old, and we were at this, and we were at the library, and they had a like a sort of quiz where you walked around the library and found these different questions and had to answer them. And they said we had like a half an hour to complete this task, and there were 10 questions hidden around the library. It's a rather big library, so it's like 3 floors, and my son became quite anxious as to if we could manage to find all the questions and answer all of them in time. And I saw so clearly, like I recall in myself, how instead of it becoming a joyful task of these quests, of these puzzles, he became very annoyed and didn't enjoy himself at all, and the questions were difficult, and nothing seemed to be any fun, because he was so stressed about the time frame of it all. Because how long is half an hour? Will we be too late? And if we're too late, will we then miss the? They would draw a kid who would get a prize, and the prize, that's something to look forward to, right? The great prize at the end, and he had his eye on the prize, and he was so caught up in the fear of missing out, of not being there in time, that what was supposed to be a fun exercise became more stressful. And I think it's so interesting to see how when we put all our efforts into sort of performing, and we want to see these results, and if we don't see them, or if we fail, then we've blown it, then we're screwed, then it's over. And that's not the case at all. But we so easily forget that, and I think it's important, really important, to remind ourselves, because as adults we are the mirrors whom our children reflect themselves in, as they are to us. And when they see how we approach life as a make it or break it type exercise, they see how much we stress about all these different tasks that we perform in everyday life, and how important it is for us not to fail at them, because if we fail, then we're useless human beings just holding up space on planet Earth. And who wants to be that? Because I think it's so fantastic how when you're in a situation, right? So you're going to the grocery store and you're gonna buy 20 items on the shopping list, and then you look at your watch and you see, like, okay, I need to get out of here in like 20 minutes. So I need to be really quick about finding these grocery items. And you run around the store like crazy, and for some strange reason the butter is not where it used to be or supposed to be, and they're out of flour, and nothing just seems to match your expectation of what the thing is going to be like, and your stress level rises accordingly. It's almost as if the whole thing is pushing you towards a realization that what you're pursuing is not the goal. Because you can go to the store and you can do the task, and you can just perform at the best of your ability. And if you're late, you're late. And the next time around, you might do it differently. But we're always trying to get ahead of ourselves as to avoid these unavoidable things, which is failing. And stress is an important reminder that it's okay to fail. Because stress is the trigger that sort of fools you into believing that if you mess this up, then you're royally screwed. Then you'll be abolished, sent out into the desert to die alone, a sad and pitiful death. But that's just the surface level. I remember this film, which I really thoroughly enjoyed in that manner, which is Charlize Theron plays the lead in the remake of Mad Max. Now she is a slave to this horrible monster of a human being who holds women captive as a sort of freak harem for his empire, and she tries to escape this hell on earth to get back home to where she came from, which was this innocent place, this Garden of Eden. So she flees away from this horrible, stressful place where she cannot blossom, and when she finally gets to the point where she thought she wanted to go, there is nothing there. Because that's not where the life is, that's not where the magic happens. It's just a gigantic detour, and I guess spoiler alert, watch the film. It's a good film. It's like the cinematography is insane, and the theme and just the emotional effect of the film, I think is I highly recommend it. But just he's gone all his way to escape what made life so difficult, only to find out that the only way is through. Because by that time, hell has followed her. Because you cannot escape hell. You can only confront hell. To see that hell is an illusion that you created yourself. So she confronts her greatest fear. And then she's almighty, and she can actually create heaven on earth out of the hell that she so desperately wanted to be free from. And stress is then another invitation for you to look at these things that you don't want to look at. You know, when you're lighting your 4th cigarette that day, because it's just so hard showing up to your work, some situation in your life that feels unbearable. That's actually an invitation to see that you can actually bear this, and you are so much more, and you are so much more powerful than the part you're pretending to be a poor little me, stuck in an insignificant corner of the universe, performing a mundane task which makes no point, only to die and disappear. And you know, my friend, you can never die. You can never disappear. You've always been here, and you will always be here. And all the things that's poking at you are friendly reminders of what you really are and of your true potential. So the next time stress comes along, open the door, let the stress come in, and see what stress has to tell you. And listen. And you will learn, and you will grow. And we all reap the benefits of your growth. Because this is a group effort. We're in this together, my friend. And we can't fail. This place is unfuckupable. For sure. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Infinite Podcast with
Ulften the Flitty.
and me, Øystein Rabbe.
Thanks so much for listening. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify.
Yeah. And or on Facebook or...
Yeah, follow us on Facebook.
Yeah.
And also, we've now made a Patreon account.
Yes.
So if you like this podcast and would like to support us, go to Patreon and check out our Infinite Podcast site there. Your support would
make
really
it possible for us to to make more podcasts. It takes a lot of time. We enjoy it so much to do it, but we also have regular jobs to pay the bills, and our dream is to be able to do this full time.
Yeah,
and,
this is our full time.
And we're taking baby steps towards that dream, and we want to make more episodes and continue to share it with you. So that would be great. Actually, I realized when we talk about it, we haven't even explained what Patreon actually is. So
yeah, it's like a support site where you can support a business or
artist or
an artist or whatever
creator that makes something
with I guess like monthly donations. Could be like from $1 and upwards.
Yeah.
Right? So anything would be great. We would be so thankful. And you would be thankful because we're doing this for you.
Yeah. And it actually gives it's a good feeling sometimes to actually help the things you care about. So if you're listening to us and you care about us, but I mean seriously, it's a good thing to contribute to the things that matters to you. So
that will
we're not asking you to pay unless you actually want to see this podcast grow and unfold into what it's about to become.
Infinite greatness.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.